What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. Done such directors in the past such as Spike Lee, Christopher Nolan, David Fincher, David Lynch, and many more directors. You guys can check out those directors that I mentioned, and there's many more directors in my director playlist down below. But guys, you clicked on this video, so you know it. This time around, I focus on Wong Kar-Wai's films and ranking them from worst to best. Now keep in mind, this will not include any TV movies, short films, music videos, none of that. Specifically speaking, feature-length films that Wong Kar-Wai has done. And as of the filming of this video, which is May of 2024, he has done 10 feature-length films, so I'll be ranking them from 10 being his worst to 1 being his best, and of course, my humble opinion. And it goes without saying, but I am looking forward to seeing your ranking of his work in the comment section down below. And keep in mind, it goes without saying, but film is subjective, so your list will be different from mine. And that's what's great. I am looking forward to seeing your list in the comment section down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking these off, my number 10, this is the only Wong Kar-Wai film where I'm like, yeah, I really didn't like. My number 10 is My Blueberry Nights. So this was an American movie that he made. And the cast is fine. Some of Wong Kar-Wai's style can be, prominent in some of the scenes, which is nice. But overall, I just really wasn't engaged by the story, the romance. And even though the length really isn't that long, it feels a lot longer than what it is. So I was disappointed by this movie. I would only recommend watching this movie if you're a completionist like myself and trying to watch all Wong Kar-Wai's films. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend watching it. And that's why it is my number 10. Next up, my number 9, this might be a hot take, but here we go. My number 9 is Ashes of Time. So this is a movie that the only version of this movie that I could track down was the Redux version, and I've heard that the theatrical cut is better. Might be wrong about that. If you are someone that has seen both cuts, I am curious to hear your thoughts, but I saw the Redux cut, and on paper, this is a movie that seems like something that I would like. Fractured storytelling, check. Mysterious lead character, check. Beautiful cinematography, check. It hits all the check marks, but unfortunately in execution, it just felt very sloppy. So instead of being engaged by the fractured storytelling, I was more just frustrated, like, why is it like this? Like, it wasn't that engaging in that aspect. The story itself also, again, the premise was interesting, but in execution just felt very sloppy. It's a very sloppy film, and usually with Wong Kar-Wai, his fractured editing style, it feels very purposeful and it's very engaging, but here, it wasn't any of that for me. And again, I know that might be a hot take because I know a lot of people that love this film, but for me, I found it was middle of the road, which, again, it's why I have it higher than My Blueberry Nights. But not a bad movie, just a movie I just really wasn't able to get into, unfortunately. And that's why it's my number 9. Next up, my number 8, here we go. We get into the films where I'm like, yep, I like. My number 8, we have Days of Being Wild. I like this one. I think this one is solid. It's a sturdy made film, really good performances, cinematography is nice. Definitely worth your time, especially if you're trying to watch all of his films. This is definitely one of those ones where I didn't really hear much about it, so I went into pretty much with a blank slate, and I'm glad. I think that's the way you want to go into this film because it's really, really solid. And that's why it's my number 8. Next up, my number 7, we have The Grandmaster. So The Grandmaster was, I didn't know it at the time because I didn't know who the director was, but The Grandmaster was actually my introduction into Wong Kar-Wai's filmography. I saw it, I think it was January of 2014. It might have been January of 2014 or January of 2015, but regardless, it's been a long time ago. But one thing that really struck me about the film from 9-10 years ago and even now is that the film is gorgeous. The cinematography is incredible. It really is. Production design, music, costume design, makeup, it is all on point. Like, in terms of the filmmaking, it's a smorgasbord for the senses. Like, it is incredible. But unfortunately, this was a Weinstein film. So, yeah, you probably already guessed it, but I'll say it if you didn't know. The Grandmaster was a film that Wong Kar-Wai, unfortunately, didn't have full control. He didn't have final cut. So Weinstein, unfortunately, snipped the film to pieces, and it became a mess. But it's one of those things where whilst My Blueberry Nights is a mess, and whilst, in my opinion, Ashes of Time are a mess, The Grandmaster, I'm able to more accept it being a mess because it's a gorgeous mess. And it's one of those things where I cut the movie some slack because I understand, from what I understand with other directors, it's not easy working with, Weinstein. Which is one of the reasons why it's a good thing that he's no longer producing films, because all these directors say, yeah, we didn't have final cut. He would, snip these films to pieces. And this is a good example where, yeah, you can tell that it got snipped to pieces, but it's not Wong Kar-Wai's film, his fault. So I don't blame him. And that's why, again, I cut the film some slack because, again, you can tell that the flourishes are there for Wong Kar-Wai. You can tell that it is well made in that aspect. And I do think that if there's a cut out there where he actually approved of it, I'm sure it was a lot better. But unfortunately, that cut I haven't seen because in America, this theatrical cut is the only one that we have. So again, long-winded, I know, but that's why I have the Grandmaster as my number 7. Next up, my number 6, we have As Time Goes By. This is a rock-solid film. I liked this film quite a bit, actually. And similar to Days of Being Wild, I didn't really know much about it going into it, but really good. I liked it. It's very well acted. It's got, Wong Kar-Wai style at the forefront, interesting storytelling. Overall, very well put together. And that's why it's my number 6. Now we get to the nitty-gritty, top 5. So my top 5, these are all films that I think are good to great. So let's get started. So my number 5, we have Chungking Express. This was a film that I was very much so looking forward to watch for a long, long time because I have a book, 1001 Movies to Watch Before You Die. And this was one of those films where I would always see the picture, and it was one of those things where I didn't know what to make of the picture. Like, I was like, I haven't seen the film, so I don't know what the context of this photo is, but it always intrigued me. And I have to say, this was a good film. I really, really liked the fractured editing and the storytelling. I think that it made for an investing experience. I also like how it's a 2-for-1 film, if you will. Like, if you look at the first half and the second half, like, they do tie together nicely, but it's 2 different stories, and I like how they do blend together. Love the cinematography, like the characters. It's just a very well-made film, but I will say this, and this goes with this entry and then the other 4. These 5 films are all films that I really like, but I don't think that one viewing is enough for these films. I think that these are films that I need to watch multiple times. So just know that I am having this ranking the way that it is, but this could change over the course of the next several years upon multiple rewatches of these other films. I'm sure that will change because, again, as I found with Stanley Kubrick's ranking when I did his work, my ranking changed 5 years later because I rewatched certain of his films, with a certain mindset that I then had. So I think that's going to be the same case with this, where Chungking Express, it's my number 5, but it could go up the ranks. I could definitely see that because I do think it is a good film, and there is a lot to it. There's a lot of thematic richness to it. So I like this film a lot. That's why it's my number 5. Next up, my number 4, this is one I actually watched, 2 days ago. This was the final film that I had to watch in order to be able to say that I've seen all of his work. But my number 4, we have 2046. I really liked this film. I thought the sci-fi angle was intriguing. I thought that the romance was also something that was surprisingly, really, really good. I liked the narration. I like how this film throws a lot at viewers. Like, it trusts audiences to be able to pick up what the director's putting down. And I really, really dug that. Similar to Chungking Express, even though I saw it 2 days ago and I'm still thinking about it, this is a film that I know immediately I need to rewatch multiple times because it's heavy. It's a heavy film. It's really well done. It's definitely one of his best. That's why I have my number 4. Next up, my number 3, we have Fallen Angels. Really, really good film. This is, I didn't mention it with the other entries, but Wong Kar-Wai has it in a lot of his films where he's like combining romance with the gangster genre. And I think that with Falling Angels especially, I think it works the best. Like, watching it unfold the way that it does was really good because it's the main character trying to get out of that lifestyle. And it's really intriguing to see him try to get out of that whilst at the same time fall for someone. In the same lore of all of his other films that I've mentioned, really good cinematography, fractured editing, fractured nonlinear storytelling. Flies by, it's really well paced. And that's something I also forgot to mention. Wong Kar-Wai's films, what I like about them especially is that they're not that long. Like, I think the longest is 2046, which is, I believe, 128 minutes. So his films aren't that long, and they fly by for the most part. But yeah, I like Fallen Angels quite a bit. That's why it's my number 3. Next up, my number 2. This was the film that, whilst I said the Grandmaster was my introduction to Wong Kar-Wai, I didn't know who he was when I watched the Grandmaster. Versus my number 2, I knew going into it that it was a Wong Kar-Wai film, and I wanted to venture into his filmography. My number 2 is In the Mood for Love. What a beautiful film. What a gorgeous film. What a sad film. This film is, I believe it's only 99 minutes long, and it's a very meditative, melancholy film, and that's something I really appreciate about Wong Kar-Wai. Like, he is not afraid to have his films be melancholy, but especially a film like this, In the Mood for Love, like, it is a film that both adults and younger audience members can enjoy because it's got a lot of thematic richness to it. It has a lot to say, and that's something that I really like about him as well. And I think that if you wanted to start in terms of his filmography, I would honestly say start with this film. I know some people might say Chungking Express. I would personally say In the Mood for Love because it's like dipping your feet in the water, so to speak, with his filmography. Like from what I recall when I watched it, I didn't really notice too much of like the frame rate, like slowing down or like speeding up. Versus Chungking Express, like that's full tilt Wong Kar-Wai. So this film, In the Mood for Love, I think is a good starting point in my personal opinion. So yeah, great film. And honestly, for the longest time, it would have been my number one. But what happened was I saw last year for Pride Month, I saw this film, my number one. My number one, this might be a hot take, but I don't care because I love this film. My number one is Happy Together. So yeah, as I mentioned, I saw this film because I was looking up like, movies to watch for Pride Month. And I came across Happy Together and, when someone was explaining why someone should watch it, they mentioned how it's a Wong Kar-Wai film. And I was like, okay, I'm very curious now to see how he takes an LGBTQ plus approach, even more so. And I was glad that I watched this film because this was an incredible film. Yes, it's sad. Yes, it's in many ways throwing a lot at audience members. Like, this is Chungking Express, yes, is full tilt Wong Kar-Wai, but this is even more so. Like, you have usage of black and white, you have color cinematography, to contrast that. You have, FBCS increasing, decreasing. You have a lot thrown at audience members. I loved it. Because it made it so that way I had to follow along the journey of these two characters. And the relationship of these two characters is something that is really interesting. It feels so raw, so human. And although I do think the last 2 minutes could have been cut, at least again as the filming this video, I think that personally it should have ended at the waterfall. You'll know if you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. But still, I love this film. I think it is great. It is something that has to be experienced, especially if you're trying to watch all of his films. It has to be experienced. Again, it might be a hot take that this is so high up on my list, but again, I love this film. I really, really do. And I think that not enough people talk about this film. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. So that way it can get the word out. Watch Happy Together. It is a great film. Just, again, go in knowing that this film is quite sad. But again, if you've seen those other films, you know that's to be expected with his work. But yeah, that's my ranking, guys, of Wong Kar-Wai's films. Let me know your ranking in the comment section down below. And I also just wanted to say, I try to usually mention at the end if I like the director or not. And I will say with Wong Kar-Wai, I definitely really like his work. I think that he is an auteur. He has a style that is something to behold. Like, it is very unique. Not many directors have something like this in terms of, again, slowing down and speeding up the FBCS. Other thing I wanted to mention about that is style is I love how he focuses on characters that are broken, trying to pick their lives up, or sometimes in some cases content with being broken, and at the same time affecting other people in their circle and there being a ripple effect. Cinematography is usually gorgeous in his films. I love the music choices, especially the score when he has score in his films. Love also the pacing of his films for the most part. But again, his films are something that aren't really a one and done type experience. Like, especially the top 5 that I mentioned, they're films I know I'm going to have to rewatch. And who knows, maybe my ranking will change down the line. But guys, again, I really do appreciate you guys for watching. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me on Letterboxd, and I'll catch you guys later.